Today's podcast is for the neurotypical wives who may be suffering from Cassandra Syndrome as a result of being married to someone on the autism spectrum. We're going to open up with a very blunt message. The more you chase him, the more you lose yourself. So in this podcast, we're going to talk about Cassandra Syndrome and emotional surrender. I want to begin today with a sentence that may sting a little bit, but it may also set you free. The constant emotional pursuit you've been living in may be the very thing destroying your peace. And if you're a wife experiencing Cassandra Syndrome, you probably know exactly what I mean. The over-explaining, emotional reaching, trying again, rewriting of texts, the rehearsing conversations in your head, the constant hope that this time he'll finally understand what you're feeling. And maybe sometimes he does intellectually, but emotionally, you still feel alone. And over time, something tragic happens. Your entire emotional world becomes organized around trying to get emotional connection from someone who may not naturally connect in the way your nervous system desperately needs. And today, I want to talk about what happens when you finally stop chasing. Not because you stop caring, but because you finally realize you can't emotionally survive living this way forever. So, let's take a break. 5 seconds here, breath. I want to talk about the addiction to hope. One of the hardest things about neurodiverse marriage is that it often survives on intermittent reinforcement. And intermittent reinforcement is psychologically powerful. Because every once in a while, you see the version of your ASD husband you've been longing for. Maybe he says something insightful. Maybe he has a moment of tenderness. Maybe he suddenly understands you for 10 minutes or so. Maybe he has done really well for a week or so. And your nervous system immediately says, oh, there he is. This is the real him. The relationship we could have had all along is finally starting to unfold. But then what happens? The shutdown returns. The emotional flatness returns. The defensiveness returns. The logic returns. And now you're devastated all over again. Not because there was no connection, but because there was just enough connection to keep hope alive. And this creates emotional addiction. Because now you're chasing possibility instead of reality. Let's take a 5-second pause, breath. I want to talk about the nervous system trap now. Most Cassandra wives think they're trying to save the marriage, but often they're actually trying to regulate their nervous system. Think about it. Why does his emotional distance feel so unbearable? Because your body interprets disconnection as danger. So your nervous system begins protesting. You want to explain more, pursue harder, clarify better, push for reassurance, fix the misunderstanding immediately. And if he withdraws, your body escalates further, not because you're weak, not because you're dramatic, but because attachment panic is one of the deepest forms of distress humans experience, especially when you feel emotionally invisible. So now your nervous system becomes trapped in a cycle. Disconnection to pursuit, to invalidation, to panic, to more pursuit, and eventually you don't even recognize yourself anymore. A 5-second pause with breath. I want to talk about why letting go feels so terrifying to you. Now here's where many women panic, because the moment they hear the phrase let go, they think that means stop caring, accept crumbs, become emotionally numb, abandon my needs, give up on intimacy. No, this is not what I'm saying at all. I'm talking about letting go of something far more specific. Letting go of the belief that your peace depends on changing him. Because as long as your emotional stability depends on him validating you, him responding correctly, him becoming emotionally expressive, him finally seeing your pain the right way, your nervous system will remain trapped. in permanent instability. You live emotionally suspended, always waiting, always hoping, always bracing. And that's why so many Cassandra wives feel chronically exhausted, not because they're weak, but because their nervous systems never get to stand down. Pause with breath. Let's talk about grieving the fantasy. This next part is hard, really hard. Sometimes healing begins when you grieve the relationship you kept hoping would eventually appear. Not because your ASD spouse is evil or a bad person, not because there's no good in him, but because your mind has been holding on to a version of the marriage that may never fully exist. And as painful as grief is actually healthier than fantasy. Listen, grief is healthier than fantasy because fantasy keeps you emotionally trapped. Grief lets reality finally settle in. And once reality settles in, something unexpected happens. Your nervous system stops fighting reality every second of the day. That's what surrender actually is. It's not collapsing. It's ending the war with what is. Now, let's talk about the difference between love and emotional dependency. A lot of women in Cassandra dynamics confuse love with emotional survival. That means, well, if he disconnects emotionally, I emotionally collapse. That's not love anymore. That's nervous system dependency. And please hear me compassionately. That dependency usually develops because you've been emotionally deprived for so long. Tiny moments of connection start feeling like oxygen. So you cling to them, analyze them, replay them, wait for them, need them. But real healing begins when your emotional center slowly moves back inside yourself, where his mood no longer determines your stability. His shutdown no longer defines your worth, and his limitations no longer erase your identity. That shift is life-changing because now you can love someone without disappearing inside them. Let's take a breath. Now let's talk about what surrender actually looks like. So what does surrender actually look like in real life? It looks like no longer chasing every emotional misunderstanding, no longer forcing emotional processing at 11 p.m., no longer begging to be seen, no longer trying to extract empathy through intensity, and no longer turning every painful interaction into an emotional emergency. And strangely, when the emotional pursuit stops, neurotypical wives notice something very shocking. They can finally think clearly again because survival mode quiets down. And from that calmer place right there, you can finally make wise decisions. Not panicked decisions, not attachment decisions, not fear decisions, wise decisions. Maybe the marriage improves. Maybe it stabilizes. Maybe clearer boundaries emerge. Maybe deeper acceptance develops. Or maybe you eventually realize the relationship truly can't meet your core needs. But either way, you finally stop drowning. Now, you are allowed to come back to yourself. I think many Cassandra wives secretly believe, well, if I stop emotionally chasing my ASD husband, I'll lose the marriage. No. The truth is this. You already lost yourself trying to save it. Let me repeat that. You have already lost yourself trying to save this ASD marriage. Healing often begins the moment you finally say, you know what? I can't spend the rest of my life emotionally begging for connection. I can't live like this. I refuse to spend another day like this. That sentence isn't cruel. It's honest. And honesty is where the nervous system healing begins. So no, letting go does not mean becoming cold. It means releasing obsession, releasing emotional overfunctioning, releasing the fantasy that you can force reciprocity, and finally allowing yourself to exist again, not just as a wife, not just as a pursuer, but as a whole human being. And honestly, that may be the beginning of the first real peace you've felt in decades. Now, if this resonated deeply with you, I want you to comment below. Say, I'm learning to stop chasing, not because you don't care, but because you're finally realizing your nervous system deserves peace too. Now, if this video helped put language to what you've been living through, subscribe, because this channel exists to help neurotypical wives and neurodiverse marriages finally understand what's happening emotionally, neurologically, and relationally. Please comment. I will read and respond to your comment, and I'll see you in the next video. Would you like to schedule a paid private coaching session? This will be in the form of a face-to-face Zoom call. Underneath any of my videos, you'll see this Calendly link. If you click on that link, it'll open up my calendar. You can pick the available days and times that works for your schedule. You'll get a follow-up email immediately after purchasing a session that will have the Zoom link that coincides with the day and time that you picked. I will get an email too that you scheduled a session, and I will be available on that exact day and time, and we will talk. I look forward to working with you. Some of you may not know that I have a lot of books on Amazon, so if you like my videos, you'll like my books. I have several for ASD spouses, for NT spouses, and for the neurodiverse couple. Underneath any of my videos, you'll see this link. Feel free to click on that link and see what's available. I'm sure you'll find something that applies to you. So if you're struggling in your neurodiverse marriage, help is available, one click away.